President Trump plans to move ahead with selecting a Supreme Court justice. He tweeted this morning, "I will be making my Supreme Court pick on Thursday of next week. Thank you." If confirmed, his nominee will fill the vacancy created after the death of Justice Antonin Scalia almost a year ago. CBS News chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford first reported the news of the frontrunner to be nominated for the seat. She joins us now from Washington. Okay, Jan, walk us through this. Who's the favorite to get the nomination, and what do we know about him?
Well, the frontrunner now is a Denver-based federal appeals court judge named Neil Gorsuch. He's kind of an establishment guy. He was a D.C. lawyer, elite education, Harvard, Oxford. He went to undergrad at Columbia, and he just sailed through his confirmation hearings. It was a voice vote with no opposition. So I think that's really kind of elevated him to the top now. But I've got to tell you, this news that he has emerged as the frontrunner is coming as a real disappointment to some conservatives who had been urging President Trump to nominate a judge on the Atlanta-based federal appeals court, William Pryor, who's the former Alabama Attorney General. He was seen by many as kind of the most worthy successor to Justice Scalia, but he was filibustered by Democrats in the appeals court nomination process after he was nominated by President George Bush. And Senate Republicans, my sources tell me, have told the White House that they are worried about a confirmation fight over Pryor. Now, the other nominee prospect is another federal appeals court judge. He's based in Pennsylvania, Thomas Hardiman. He's considered a conservative, although he is making some conservatives nervous because not as much is known about him, and his wife's family really is kind of a big contributor to Democratic causes. So people are trying to read the tea leaves, because I think with one thing, when you think about Republicans and conservative nominations, there is a real fear that Trump will get it wrong like other presidents on the Republican side have gotten it wrong, and appoint someone who may seem conservative, but once he gets on that Supreme Court, issues rulings that are right down with the liberal justices. So there's this real concern that President Trump has got to get this right, and that's why you see some nervousness now when you have this movement in the list.
And it's an appointment for life, so you can understand, if you feel that way, why it would be of interest. I want to ask you, though, it's been nearly a year since the death of Justice Scalia. Republicans have never granted a hearing for Merrick Garland. That was Obama's pick to fill the seat. So how do you expect Democrats will respond to Trump's nomination? Oh,
I think Democrats are going to come out with guns blazing on this nomination. And that's why you're seeing this reluctance from, say, Mitch McConnell to really have an all-out fight over William Pryor. They know Democrats are going to be ready to try to block this nomination. And remember, the filibuster is still in existence for the Supreme Court. The Democrats didn't do away with the filibuster like they did for other cabinet-level nominations. So, there's the concern of how many votes would actually be there. If you had to get 60, I think that's going to be impossible, but they've at least got to get, 53 or so. Keep all the Republicans together. But, I think we're hearing from Republicans, and my sources are telling me that, this fear that Democrats are going to fight is really, of course, they're going to fight. And Republicans have to remember that they are replacing a conservative icon. And so if President Trump is not prepared to fight, then the Supreme Court will turn to the left. I mean, that will be his legacy, turning the Supreme Court to the left with this pick. And so you've got a Republican-controlled Senate, a Supreme Court justice vacancy that was held by Justice Scalia, kind of the staunchest conservative on the Supreme Court, and then a looming vacancy down the road for replacing a justice who will not be that conservative. Are they going to fight on that? So all these things are coming into play now, Rena.
Here's a crazy question, Jan. We know that you need 60 votes, but could it potentially be, now that Republicans control the House and the Senate, that they could completely amend that rule?
Yes, and they would. I fully expect Republicans to trigger what they like to call the nuclear option, as Democrats did and would have done for the Supreme Court if they'd been in this situation. They've off the record, have acknowledged that. If the Democrats insist on blocking any nominee that President Trump sends up. So let's say he does send up Neil Gorsuch. Obviously not the solid, battle-tested conservative that, say, William Pryor would have been. Not kind of the more fiery pick that would inflame the left. And if Democrats insist on filibustering him, I am told by my sources they are prepared to do that, because if they're going to do that to replace Justice Scalia, then when it's Justice Kennedy who's retired, a much more moderate conservative justice who votes with liberals on social issues, then they may as well go ahead and do it now.
Fascinating stuff here. Jan Crawford from Washington. Thanks, Jan.
Thanks.